There is a door in every man's mind. Most men never find it. Fewer still learn to lock it. And on the other side of that door stands every person who has ever tried to control you. The coworker who baits you in meetings, the woman who tests you with silence, the stranger who insults you in traffic, the family member who knows exactly which word will make your jaw tighten. They are all trying to reach the same door. They are all trying to get inside. Most men leave it wide open their entire lives. They call it being real. They call it being passionate. They call it just being honest about how I feel. What it actually is an unlocked door swinging in the wind, and anyone with the patience to study you can walk straight through it. Somewhere, right now, a man is losing an argument he didn't even know he was in. He thinks he's defending his pride. He's actually just proving, in real time, exactly which lever moves him, and handing that information to the one person in the room who was paying attention. There is another kind of man. He has been insulted in front of crowds. He has been betrayed by people who shared his table. He has watched his own reputation get torn apart by strangers who never met him. And still, somehow, nothing gets in. Not because he doesn't feel it, he feels it exactly like you would. But somewhere along the way, he found the door. And he locked it. This is the story of how that door gets found, and 7 ways a man learns to guard it for the rest of his life. Stay to the 5th. It's the one most men get backwards their whole lives without ever noticing. 1. Every reaction is a payment. Stop spending on people who never earn it. Picture your composure as a currency. Not unlimited, not free. Every time you snap, defend, explain, or explode, you are spending it, handing coin to someone who did nothing to deserve it. Most men go broke by lunchtime. A slow driver takes a coin. A rude email takes 3 more. By the time someone actually insults them to their face, the account is already empty, and what comes out isn't strength. It's whatever's left of a man who's been overdrawn since 8 a.m. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire that was, by most measures, trying to kill him slowly. Plague. War on multiple borders. Men in his own court smiling at his face while writing letters behind his back. If any man in history had a right to spend his composure recklessly, it was him. Instead, at night, alone, he wrote himself instructions like a general briefing a soldier for the next day's battle. Expect the liar, expect the ungrateful, expect the man who will try to provoke you, and decide, before it happens, that none of it is worth the coin. That's the part men miss. He didn't decide how to respond in the moment. The moment was already too late for that. He decided the night before, in private, with no audience, no stakes, and no ego in the room to argue with him. Here is the uncomfortable math. Every man has a finite number of reactions in him before his character starts to show cracks. Waste them on people who forget the exchange within the hour, and you'll have nothing left for the one moment in life that actually needed you calm. The diagnosis, the betrayal, the real fight. Spend carefully, not because you're weak, because the coin is rare, and most people asking for it aren't worth the price. 2. The man who can be read has already lost the room. There's a reason chess players cover their tells. The moment your opponent knows what a raised eyebrow means, or a long pause, or a shift in your seat, they're not playing chess with you anymore. They're playing a memorized script, and you're just performing your half of it on cue. Human beings do the exact same thing to each other outside of games. Somebody learns that mentioning your job gets a reaction. Somebody learns that bringing up your ex gets a reaction. Somebody learns exactly which sentence makes you defensive, and from that day forward, they don't even need to be clever. They just need to say the sentence and watch the machine run. Seneca called this being led, not living. A man who can be predicted isn't reacting to the world. He's executing a program someone else wrote for him years ago, one provocation at a time. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The fix isn't suppression. It's not clenching your jaw and pretending the words didn't land. That's still a tell, just a quieter one. The fix is delay. A full 2 seconds of nothing before you respond to anything that's meant to provoke you. 2 seconds feels like nothing. To the person testing you, it's an eternity, because it means the script they memorized just failed. You didn't skip a line. You closed the whole book. The men history remembers as dangerous in a negotiation weren't the loudest ones. They were the ones nobody could read a single move ahead. Become illegible, and you become the one variable nobody in the room knows how to plan around. 3. Behind every attack is a wound looking for company. Nobody attacks from a place of peace. Study that sentence until you believe it, because it will change how every argument, every insult, every cold shoulder lands on you for the rest of your life. The coworker who mocks your work in the meeting isn't commenting on your work. He's telling you, without realizing it, that somebody once made him feel small in front of people he respected, and he has spent years making sure he's never on that side of the room again. The stranger who screams at you over a parking spot isn't angry about the parking spot. You just happen to be standing where 30 years of accumulated pressure finally found an exit. This isn't an excuse for their behavior. It's a diagnosis. And once you can diagnose a man, you stop being afraid of him, because a wound, unlike a weapon, can't actually hurt you. It can only try. Epictetus, who spent part of his life owned by another human being, understood this better than most men who've never lost their freedom for a day. He watched his own master rage, sometimes over nothing at all, and instead of matching the fear the room expected of him, he studied it. He noted where the anger came from, what it was protecting, what it was terrified of losing. A slave with nothing found a kind of freedom his master, wealthy and powerful, never touched, the freedom of understanding exactly what he was looking at. The next time someone tries to provoke you, don't ask, "How do I win this?" Ask, "What is this person protecting?" The answer is never you. It's always something older, something they haven't looked at directly in years, and once you see that, their attack stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like information. Information a calm man can use. Panic can't use anything. 4. What you rehearse in silence is what shows up under pressure. No soldier learns to hold formation for the first time while being shot at. He learns it in a field, alone, thousands of repetitions before anyone is aiming at him for real. When the real moment comes, his body doesn't have to think. It already knows what it's done 10,000 times before. Composure works exactly the same way, and this is the part most self-improvement content gets completely backwards. Men wait for the big moment, the public humiliation, the betrayal, the confrontation, and expect to suddenly perform like a Stoic philosopher with zero training, because they read one quote that morning. It doesn't work that way. What you do with the small irritations, the delayed flight, the interrupted sentence, the contractor who's 2 hours late, that's the training ground. Nobody's watching. There's no reputation on the line. Which is exactly why it matters most. A man who reacts to a slow line at the coffee shop with visible frustration has already told you how he'll react to something that actually matters. He's just been rehearsing it in private the whole time, unaware anyone was keeping score. Musonius Rufus taught his students to seek out small discomfort on purpose, not because suffering builds character in some vague poetic sense, but because a man who can sit calmly with minor discomfort has built a nervous system that doesn't panic when comfort disappears. Comfort is alone. Anyone whose peace depends entirely on nothing ever going wrong is one bad Tuesday away from losing it completely. Start there. Not with the confrontation you're dreading. With the small ones nobody's grading you on. That's where the real man gets built, one unremarkable moment at a time, until the remarkable ones stop being able to touch him. 5. Explaining yourself to a closed mind is how you lose twice. This is the one most men get exactly backwards, and it costs them more than almost anything else on this list. There's a difference between explaining yourself to someone seeking understanding and explaining yourself to someone who has already decided the verdict before you opened your mouth. Most men can't tell the difference in the moment, so they treat every accusation like a trial they still have a chance to win, and pour their energy, their words, their dignity into convincing a jury that made up its mind before the hearing even began. Cato the Younger stood in front of political enemies who wanted nothing more than to watch him unravel in public, to hand them a moment of visible weakness they could repeat for years. He gave them nothing, not because he had no answer. He had better answers than anyone in that room, but because he understood something most men never learn. A man defending himself to someone who has already convicted him isn't having a conversation. He's performing a confession for an audience that will use every word against him regardless of what he says. Silence, used correctly, isn't surrender. It's a door closing on a conversation you never needed to walk into. And here's what makes it so unbearable to the person trying to provoke you: they were counting on your explanation. They built their whole attack around the reaction they assumed you'd give them. When you don't give it, they're left standing there holding an accusation nobody's fighting, in front of a room that's starting to wonder why they needed a reaction so badly in the first place. You don't owe every accusation a defense. You owe your character consistency, not commentary. Let your actions argue your case over months. Let your words stay out of arguments that were rigged before you arrived. 6. The body keeps the score before the mind does. Read it first. Long before you can name what you're feeling, your body already knows. The tight jaw, the shallow breath, the heat rising in your chest before a single word has left your mouth. Most men skip straight past this. They don't notice the signal, they just notice they're already 3 sentences into an argument they didn't choose to start. The Stoics weren't trying to eliminate emotion, anyone who tells you that has never actually read them. They were trying to catch it earlier, in the body, before it hijacked the mind and started making decisions the mind would have to clean up later. Marcus Aurelius wrote about catching the first stirring, the initial impression, before it hardens into a judgment you can't take back. This is a physical skill before it's a philosophical one. The next time you feel that familiar heat rising, in a meeting, in traffic, on a phone call that's going sideways, don't reach for a comeback. Reach for your breath. One slow exhale, 4 seconds long, does something no amount of willpower alone can do. It tells your nervous system the emergency it just declared isn't real. Not because the insult didn't happen. Because your survival doesn't actually depend on winning this exchange, and your body needs to be told that directly, in a language older than words. A man who can read his own rising heat before it becomes a sentence has already won the confrontation most people never even realize they're having. The one against themselves, 3 seconds before the real one even starts. 7. A man who needs nothing from the room cannot be owned by it. Every method on this list points at the same destination. Not becoming cold, not becoming unreachable, becoming a man whose peace doesn't have an invoice attached to it, nothing the room has to hand over before he's allowed to feel steady. Watch what happens to most men when the room stops giving them what they need. Take away the compliment and they get anxious. Take away the agreement and they get defensive. Take away the audience and they lose interest in their own convictions. That's not confidence. That's rent, paid to a landlord who never has to justify raising the price. Zeno of Citium built an entire philosophy after losing everything: his ship, his cargo, his fortune, wrecked on the way to a port he never reached. Most men would have called that the end of the story. He called it the beginning of one, because for the first time, nothing external was propping him up, and he had to find out what was actually his, underneath all of it. What he found became a discipline that's outlasted empires. That's the real prize hiding behind every insult, every betrayal, every attempt to control you. Not revenge, not the last word, a kind of ownership over your own mind that nobody can repossess, because nobody else holds the deed. The door stays locked, not because you're hiding behind it, but because you finally understand you were never obligated to open it for anyone who only came to take something from the room you built alone. The next time someone tries to get in, you won't need to fight them at the door. You'll just notice they're knocking, and keep walking, because for the first time, you're not waiting to see if they'll let you feel okay. You already do. That's the door most men never find. Now you know where it is. What you do with it from here is the only part of this that was ever actually up to you.